Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next edition of View from the Post. This is a series of podcasts made by pickleball referees for pickleball players to help you better understand pickleball rules and potential on-court situations that may come up and how you should best resolve them. My name is Bob Swisshelm. I am a certified referee from USA Pickleball and happen to be one of the head ref team for APP.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mike Baumgartner. I'm a certified referee from USA Pickleball and the director of officiating for the APP Tour. Thanks for joining us today. I appreciate you viewing this particular podcast.
In this particular podcast, we are going to chat through in detail player responsibilities around line calls and then how you, as an opponent, can challenge effectively and appropriately your opponent's calls, and then what avenues you have to escalate that up to get an appeal, either in an unofficiated match or in an officiated match. And so there's going to be a lot of if this, then that type of stuff in this particular situation. We'd like to start with unofficiated matches. If you've ever had a referee before, the referee has gone through something we call a PMB or a pre-match briefing that reviews with you what your responsibilities are relating to calls on your end of the court. And the short answer is that you are responsible in an unofficiated match with almost every call on your end of the court. You make out calls, you identify whether or not you faulted on double bounces or the ball touched or those types of things. Okay. Um, and then let's talk about what type of opportunities the opponent. So this is Mike, let's say you and I are playing and
Mhm.
you feel like the ball is double bounced as I hit the ball. How should you, as an opponent in an unofficiated match, respond to that?
So first and foremost, I'm not going to stop play at that particular time. It's really important not to stop play to identify what I perceive as a double bounce on your end of the court, right? I need to play the rally out, and then we should have a discussion at the end of the rally, regardless of who won the rally, on if I think it was a double bounce on your end of the court.
Right. Hopefully, I am the person, as the person who potentially committed the fault, I will have enough sportsmanship and honesty to recognize in my mind that yes, it was a double fault, and so I stop play myself to say, hey, that was a fault. But if I am convinced in the situation that I'm assuming you're saying, I went ahead and played it, and to me, I
Yeah.
didn't even perceive it. Right?
Mhm.
Explain to me why again you don't stop play in that whole situation.
Well, in this particular situation on a double bounce, that's your call, right? If you didn't make that call, I have no authority to say that you have made the call or you had a double bounce and you returned a double bounce. I have no authority to enforce that, right? Um, the only avenue I have without committing a fault myself by stopping play is to return the ball.
And then make the challenge at the end of the
Yeah, and
rally.
then yeah, of course, and make the challenge. Say, hey, that was a double bounce over there. Uh, I should bring it up regardless if I won or lost the rally, but I'm especially going to bring it up, obviously, if I had lost the rally, right? So from that point, what is your comment, or how can you handle that accusation of a double bounce that I've given you?
Well, I would perceive that I have two options. Either I can agree or disagree, or I could, if I'm playing doubles, I could look to my partner because I mean, if you're being fair and reasonable in your mind, you realize that you're focused on other things, right? I'm focused on hitting the ball, and I may or may not know whether that ball was in or ball was out. So first of all, I will agree or disagree. If I agree, then we're done, right? And I am conceding that I made a fault, and therefore I have lost the rally, regardless of whether or not we continued to play the rally, right? So,
Right.
I hit the ball, I do a double bounce that later on I admit to, but we've bounced it back and forth 3 times. Will I be able to make an argument that, well, yeah, maybe I faulted, but you played it anyway? Does that argument
You
stand?
can, yeah, you can make that argument, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere because
No, because the fault call applies regardless, right? And also this is it's counter to the argument that you made is that you as my opponent would be running a risk by stopping play. And so therefore you're going to reduce your risk, but you're not going to relinquish your ability to challenge, right? Simply because you played the
right.
ball doesn't mean that you've abdicated your ability to make that challenge. Because if you committed a fault, you committed a fault, and if you admit to the fault, that ball is dead at that point. What all
Right.
the other stuff that happened is
Anything
irrelevant.
happen after that doesn't matter.
Right.
Right. So what can you not do in this particular case? That this is not a replayable situation. Is that right?
Correct. Right. So if we I don't agree. I don't believe that I did that. But out of fairness and sportsmanship, let's go ahead and do a replay. There's nothing in the rules that says that you can do that. And because we're rule sticklers, you basically have 2 options there. Either you agree and concede the rally, or you disagree and you maintain the result of the rally. With one particular exception in terms of the type of call that you've made. In our example, we're
Yeah.
saying a double bounce. Double bounce, it's either it was or it wasn't. It's either a fault or the rally stands. What's the one exception to that?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Bob. What is the one exception to the rule? And since you've asked me first, I'll answer. So the one exception to the rule are non-volley zone foot faults and service foot faults. That's the one exception to the rule. However, you may accuse me of doing that, but I don't have to agree with it. How if I do agree with it, we now have a replay situation. If
No,
I
no,
don't
no.
agree,
Say that again. If you agree that you've made a fault, it's a fault.
yep.
If you
Yes, yes,
disagree,
yes,
yes.
yes. I'm sorry. You're
Sorry,
exactly right.
boss. Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah. Don't fire me.
no, I just misspoke is all. Right. So if I agree that I did that, then it is a fault on me. If I disagree that I did that, it is a replay.
Right. So
Correct?
so it's a common misconception that, well, if we disagree, then we're just going to allow a replay. There are very, very few situations in the rule book that allow for that replay. Now, having said that, in a recreational environment, that you may allow that, right? Just because all sorts of things go on in a recreational environment. But the point that we're making is in a tournament environment where even in unofficiated play, the you don't do replays for disputes. And so you as a player, if you feel pressured to do a replay, you can stand on the fact that in this call, we've reminded you that it is actually your authority to make that call. And then we're going to talk about escalation issues in terms of how you can get support for that from the tournament organization. All right. All right. So let's say that now you've gotten into this dispute. That's where we walked right into that, and you say, well, I say that I did not fault, and you say that I did fault, and you want me to do a replay, or you want to force me to concede the rally. What do we do?
Right. Now we're at a
An impasse.
point in the match, an impasse at the match that we can't get past, right? We can't get through here. We need to understand what are our options in resolving this particular dispute or situation. Hopefully, it has not risen to the point of an argument. Yeah.
Fisticuffs.
So most times it doesn't. So you do have options as a player. Non-refereed and refereed match, right?
Right. So, and
So
right
we'll
now
talk
we're focusing on
non-refereed.
non-refereed, but
Yep,
yeah.
we'll talk non-refereed right now. You can summon someone to come to the court, a head referee. If there's no head referee available at the tournament, you can ask for the tournament director. At that point in time, head referee will come out to the court and listen to both sides, understand what the situation is, and should apply the rule properly, and then we move on from there.
Right. So in this situation, for example, hopefully now you as players understand that what the head referee should do is come in and as you said, try to de-escalate, but listen to both sides. And then with that scenario in mind, we would say, well, this person claimed that this person did a double bounce, but this person says, no, I did not. Well, it's that person's call. I did not see it, so I certainly cannot overturn it. I can ask them whether or not they're 100% sure that they did not, and that's fine. And then this person says, "Well, then I want to replay." And so again, the referee would say, "There is no opportunity in the rules for a replay." So this person wins that rally, and it's that's relatively clear cut. You may not like it, but that's relatively clear cut. Now, part of the responsibility of the head ref when they come out to do this is to assess what level of tension is left over, right?
De-escalate. Remember,
Then,
de-escalate.
right, to de-escalate that. And so certainly there is an option, even though that match was not refereed to begin with, if we have referees available, either player can say, well, this has been a persistent issue, bad line calls or whatever, and I would like to request a referee to be on this particular match. That's once the initial problem is resolved, the head referee can, if one is available, bring a referee and let the referee then manage that process for the rest of the match.
Yep. So if you call a head referee out to the court, Bob, and let's say you call a head referee out to the court and the head referee does not side for you, okay, does not side in your favor after everything is listened to, right? Are there any potential penalties associated with that?
In an unofficiated match, no, because what you're doing is you're basically wanting clarification for how that rule should properly be applied on that particular situation. However, and here we morph into the officiated match. Yes, there will be ramifications to that. Um, so your responsibilities are very similar in the sense that that talk about that escalation process. You are responsible for line calls on your end of the court, and your referee will have said that, and then your opponent appeals it, whatever, and then they appeal it to the referee, and you still do not like the referee's ruling on that line call. Number one, and Mike and I talked about this in terms of what our advice is, you certainly have the option of escalating or challenging any referee ruling to the head ref to bring the head ref out. However, our suggestion to you is not to do that for discretionary items, right? So and this is coming to Mike's question about what is the impact of you making a challenge and you losing the challenge. So Mike made a line call. I disagree with that line call. I appeal to the ref. The referee sides with Mike, and I say, I want to bring the head ref out. The referee, by training, will say, okay, you want to bring the head ref out. They'll confirm it. They're not going to try to stop you because they're not allowed to try to stop you. Right? We do not want or allow the referee to apply pressure to stop you from escalating. Part of the reason for this discussion and Mike raising that question, though, is there's an impact. Just like earlier, we talked about don't stop play because there's a risk. You want to be careful about what challenges you make. And our suggestion is you don't make challenges to discretionary items because in this situation, the referee is appealed on made a ruling on an appeal to the line call. The head ref is going to come out and say, okay, I didn't see it. And it's very clear that the process was followed
Right.
Mike made the
Right.
call, I appealed, referee ruled, everything's copacetic, call stands. Oh, by the way, if you challenge a referee's ruling and the referee's ruling is stands, then you're going to lose a timeout and you are going to get a technical warning. And we'll talk in more detail about the consequences of the warnings. But so neither one of those are immediately a problem unless you've used all your timeouts. Because
Yeah.
if we try to assess a timeout and you do not have a timeout, then that gets turned into a technical warning. We then assess another technical warning. Well, two technical warnings together is a technical foul. And a technical foul is either going to cost you a point or give your opponent a point if you have zero. So there is a potentially substantial negative impact to you for losing a challenge that where you've dragged the head ref out. So our advice to you is don't do that for things that are discretionary that the head ref actually didn't see. Use that option to deal with rule interpretation disputes. If the referee says, "Well, you guys are disagreeing, then let's do a replay." Well, you now know that a replay is not appropriate. Says, "Hey, hey, hey, ref, you were not allowed to do a replay." Well, yes, we are, because sometimes referees get things wrong. In that situation, you call the head ref out, and the head ref will be able to come and say, "No, you're right. There's no replay involved in that." I rambled
Yeah.
quite a
So
bit,
yeah,
but I think I've answered your question.
no, you answered it appropriately for sure. Inside of the rule book, 13J, page 72, explains this in detail in a rule book lingo. But 2 points of emphasis here. One, if it's a discretionary call by a referee or a subjective call, as you want to say, then highly advise it's not worth your time to call a head referee out. Now you have the right to do that, and as Bob said, that a referee is trained that if you ask for a head referee, referee should say, "Are you requesting a head referee?" And if you reply yes, then head referee comes out, right? But there are times when head referees do need to come out. That's for sure.
And there are a
Application
whole
of the
slew of
rule.
other situations that aren't directly
Yeah,
related to appeals or to rule interpretations where it's appropriate to get additional assistance. Hey, there's, the spectators are being nasty, or there's some damage on the court and I want to get moved off to somewhere else, or the balls that have presented to me by the referee aren't new enough, right? And I want to bring a new ball in. So there are a variety of other things there where it is very appropriate for you to escalate and get some assistance. And in those situations, yeah, the head ref is going to come out and they may or may not agree with you, but those aren't punitive, right? Though those are
right.
just, oh, hey, no, I understand the situation, but there's not anything we can do about it. We can't move you because of the shadows because every other court is full, right? That doesn't mean you can't ask, but we may need not to be able to accommodate it. And if we can't accommodate it, there's no additional penalty in that situation.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like I was saying, if there's a rules application issue and it's been applied the wrong way, then, by all means, you have the right to call the head referee out for a discussion. That's for sure. I just want to make it known that if the referee does not side in your favor, potential penalty for that in a refereed match.
Right. Which was a timeout, loss of a timeout, and a technical warning.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
All right. As usual, we start these things and we think, oh, we're only going to talk for 10 minutes. Well, we've been talking for about 28 minutes now. That's just time flies when you're having fun. So I think we're ready to wrap this up. Do you agree, Mike?
I agree.
All right. So this has been the latest edition of View from the Post. Thank you so much. Here we've summarized your responsibilities and authority in terms of making line calls or any type of call on your end of the court in an unofficiated match. Although we didn't specifically harp on it, but realize as well during the pre-match briefing, the referee, you have the ability to challenge or to appeal your opponent's call to the referee, and that's your referee would have gone over that as well. But ultimately, you also have the authority in an unofficiated match or an officiated match to bring in the head ref or the tournament director to help resolve issues. In an officiated match, there's a potential that there may be punitive damage or punitive action taken against you if your challenge is not overturned. So if the referee's call is upheld, there can potentially be some additional penalties for you relating to that. Okay. Again, my name is Bob Swisshelm, and who are you again?
Mike Bumgrinder.
All right. So thank you guys so much. Please like this podcast, subscribe to the podcast. If you have any specific topics that you would like for us to address, please send us an email at viewfromthepost, all scrunched together, at gmail.com. See
All
you on
right.
the
Thanks for
courts.
joining us. Take care. Bye.